Mubarak steps down. Protesters in Egypt are revved up, but Israel's former ambassador to Egypt not celebrating, saying, and I'm quoting, "We're in big trouble," and that Israel is facing a hostile situation. My next guest is worried too. Josh Block is the former spokesman for the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee. He is live in Tel Aviv. Josh, I know that there is a long delay in the message getting between us, so I'll keep my questions short and to the point. Number one, do you firmly believe that the Islamists will take control in Egypt and then maybe Jordan and Saudi Arabia?
Stuart, I don't think we know yet. This is one of these cases where it's pick a year. Is it 1952 with a military coup? Is it 1979 where the Islamists take over? Is it 1989 where we see freedom spread across Eastern Europe? I don't think we know what's going to happen yet, but certainly the prospect of the Muslim Brotherhood taking control or exerting tremendous influence in Egypt is a major cause for concern, not just for the United States, not just for Israel, but for the Egyptian people as well.
Would you say that Israel faces its worst nightmare with revolution all around it and the Islamists taking control, certainly in Lebanon and some places elsewhere?
Well, you know, it's important to remember the context in which these things are taking place. Consider that Iran has just successfully exported the revolution to Lebanon for the first time in 30 years, spreading its radical ideas, taking over that country. Now you see tremendous instability in Egypt. Whether the government that emerges from this turmoil remains a steady U.S. ally, maintains its obligations to Israel under the peace accords, allows international traffic, both American and Israeli, to go through the Suez Canal. These are going to be critical questions for America's national security interests and those of Israel. Remember, we've had a partner for stability in the region for 30 years. At the end of the day, are we going to see a government that's going to help us in the war on terror? Are we going to see a government that's going to be a force for moderation? Or will it slide toward these extremists in the region? It's a very concerning question for Israel and the United States.
Right now, our viewers are seeing pictures from Cairo live, the joyous celebration there in Tahrir Square. A moment ago, we were showing you the big protests in Tehran today. And Josh, there's a couple of other developments. On Monday, there's going to be a day of rage in Bahrain, very close, as you know, to Saudi Arabia. And the Hamas people are celebrating what's going on in Egypt today. It just looks, if you take the big picture for a second, it just looks like the opponents, your opponents in Israel, are really mounting a full court press against you right now.
Well, I have to say, Stuart, as an American, obviously, I deeply fear for the transformation of the region in a negative direction. I mean, keep in mind, February 11th, 1979, the Shah falls. It takes a year for an Islamic takeover in Iran. A government that is pursuing nuclear weapons, is the greatest sponsor of terrorism in the world. They are a force for bad. They are the sponsors of all of the negative forces opposing the West, opposing freedom that we see. There's a reason that people are concerned. And I think the Muslim Brotherhood, this is not the March of Dimes. I mean, we're talking about an organization whose spiritual guide just a couple of years ago said that Al-Qaeda's terrorism is justified when it's directed against opponents of Islam, against occupiers. I think we know what they mean when they say that. Just last year, the chairman of the Muslim Brotherhood talked about the Camp David Accords being against the laws of Islam. These are deeply worrisome comments, not just for Israel, but for the United States of America.
Josh Block, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I want to have